find some 12 volt power for the distributor. I want to come straight off the fuse block, so I'm going to have to get under the dash and figure out how does that fuse block come out of there so I can get to the back of it. It was recommended to me that I need to get under the dash, pull this fuse panel out, and find one that is always on 12 volt power when the ignition is on. Day 65. Now, I don't really know how long it's been. I've been working on this thing for like 2 weeks. I had to abandon my plan of getting the power for the distributor directly from the back of the fuse box. At some point, I'm going to get in there and rip out all the unnecessary wiring. I may even install an entirely new fuse box and really simplify it. It is an absolute mess, and it's dirty and it's gooey. It is extremely windy out here today. The sun is shining and it is a beautiful day. So hopefully you can hear me. We're going to have to go through the front of the fuse box. So I went to the store and spent yet more money, and I bought these little things. I didn't even know these things existed, but apparently you put them around the fuse, plug the fuse in, and you can tap your wire right onto the fuse. Let's go see how it works. We're going to stand right here for a minute. Dump truck's right there. It's very bright over there, and I want to try to show you this. I have spent so much time trying to figure this out. From what I've read online, you don't need more than a 10 or 15 amp fuse to power the HEI distributor. Some people don't even put it through a fuse. They say that it was factory wired, not using a fuse. Well, I'm going to use one. So I'm going to come off the radio fuse. It's a 25 amp. I went to the store and bought these little connectors. It was $3 or $4 for a pack of 5. I just bought these an hour ago and I already can't remember. I tested the slot for where the radio fuse goes in. When the key is turned off, this fuse has no power, and the little slot it's plugged into has no power. When you turn the key to the on position, the power comes through this side, through the fuse, and out this side. I'm going to put my connector on the protected side. That way, if something ever goes wrong, it should blow this fuse before it causes some kind of an electrical problem or maybe a fire under the dash. Now you just slide it over the end. Then I've got my 12 gauge wire. I've got some female connectors. I'll just stick it right over the end of that and run it out to the HEI distributor. All right, let's put this fuse back in. You can see it sticking out there. I've got my 12 gauge wire and I've got these female connectors. I'm going to need one hooked onto the fuse and the other one is going to go under the hood hooked onto the distributor. I like to use these. These are covered up. You have less chance of metal touching metal. I'm going to run the wire through the firewall, and I guess I'm lucky I don't have to drill a hole. You can probably just make out that daylight right up here where this blue and green wire go through the firewall. It's going through a rubber grommet, and there is space enough for me to slide my 12 gauge wire right through there. I'm going to push it through from outside here because I'm going to have more wire out here. I'll have a shorter piece going under the dash. I think it'll be easier to push it this way. that should be good. I can probably pull it through from the other side now. We'll just leave this sitting here for right now. Back up under the dash. Yep, there it is. Now I don't need it this long. I'm just going to pull it down where I can get to it, and I can crimp my little piece on the end. I think you're a little bit slanted, but that's okay. I'm using 12 gauge wire. I've read different opinions about what you should use. Some people say 14 or 16. I'm just using 12. I've never been really good at crimping these things. It looks pretty good and it won't pull off, so I'm gonna say that's good. I'm gonna push the rest of this back through. Not too sure how I feel about this thing, but we're gonna give it a shot. It seems a little flimsy, a little thin. Now I need to just measure across there and cut off what I don't need. Put my other connector on and hook it up. The wire's just kind of loosely run for right now. I'll clean it up better later and use some zip ties and strap everything down. We'll hook it up to the one that says battery. The last thing I think I need to do before I start this thing, or try to start it, is put my fan back on the front of the engine. In order to put the fan back on the front of the engine, I had to spend a little more money and get these water pump stud bolts. The old one of the nuts was missing. They also were very rusted and chewed up. I don't think people were using a wrench to take them off. I think they were using some pliers. I think these were like $7.
You want me to be in or out?
Stand right there. I have been working on this truck for 10 days trying to get this distributor to work. So today I've got some help. I'm going to test two things to make sure that the distributor is getting the right power that it needs. One thing that I'm going to be doing is checking to see if the distributor is actually working. Just because it's brand new, that doesn't really mean that it's working. Something could be wrong with it. So I went to Harbor Freight today and I picked this little thing up. You put it between the spark plug and the spark plug wire, and when I turn the ignition on, it should flash if the distributor is actually working and sending power to the spark plug. I'm also going to have Miles help me with the multimeter. We're going to test the 12-volt wire that goes to the distributor. When the key is just in the on position, I'm getting 12 volts, but I'm wondering what's happening to it when I actually try to start the engine. I wonder if the voltage is dropping and then not giving the distributor enough power to send power to the spark plugs. So this battery I know is fully charged because I just charged it last night. So the first thing I'm going to do is check the voltage and make sure that the battery is good. I think the battery's good enough. It's hard for me to get a good connection on this battery because the battery cables are so corroded and messed up. It's something I'm going to be replacing here pretty soon, but well, right there you can see I got 12.8 volts, so I know the battery's charged up right now. Okay, so I've got the hot hooked on to the 12 volt wire that goes to the distributor, and right here I've got the ground just on this bolt. And Miles is going to be watching the meter. The first thing I'm going to do is just turn the key on. Right now this is reading, it should really be 0. It's got some kind of bleed off on it. I believe it's millivolts, so it's really nothing. I think that's just bleed off from the system because, as I've talked about before, this truck's got so much janky wiring in it. But anyway, this should go to around 11 to 12, maybe 12.5 volts when I turn the key on. Okay, that voltage looks good. Right now I've just got the key in the on position, so this wire's got power going to it. Now I'm going to actually push in the clutch and try to start the engine and see what happens. I want to see if that voltage drops.
It went around like a bunch. It went from 30 to like 10 to like 12.
Let's do it one more time.
Okay. This time it went to like 0 point a bunch of stuff.
If you saw the meter going crazy, I think that may be the problem. The engine is turning over good, but it's not firing. So I don't really know how a distributor works. There's not any good videos explaining this, but I feel like the distributor probably needs constant 12 volt power to send sparks to the spark plugs. And as you saw on the meter, the voltage is all over the place. So I think right now what I'm going to try is to move the 12 volt wire that I've got. I have it hooked onto the radio fuse. I think I'm going to try a different fuse and then see how that works. I finally found a good source of 12 volt power for the new distributor right there. Now that is the ignition fuse. It is off when the key is off, and it stays on and it stays at 12 volts when the ignition is on. Pretty excited. That's the closest I've been so far. We're not running yet, but I'm pretty excited. This is the closest that I have gotten to get this thing running. I need it to get running good enough so I can check the timing and set the timing. But at least it starts and it kind of tries to chug along. I'm going to keep tinkering with it, and I'll start filming some more once I actually make some progress. It's time to wrap up these HEI distributor videos. I've got the distributor installed. I finally found a good power source for it. The truck still will not stay running. I am happy to say that it actually will start and kind of chug along a little bit, but it won't stay running. I believe that the carburetor probably needs to be taken apart and cleaned. The truck will only start when I pour gas into the carburetor, and this truck will run for a very short time. I believe that the truck is running off the fuel in the carburetor, and once it burns that fuel in the carburetor, that I have poured in there from the gas can, then it just kind of chokes out.